So now that we have this admin area set up to manage orders, we're going to go ahead and add some elements to this screen. We want to be able to actually go in and add products to this order via the screen directly instead of having to go in and out a bunch of different places. So my plan is to go ahead and put some text boxes, or put a single text box that's kind of acts as a multi-function purpose. It'll be a box for searching, where we can type in a product name and it'll come up with an autocomplete, and then we'll be able to actually click on that. It'll add it to the order, and then we can also make some additional adjustments and add additional products through that kind of embedded functionality. Instead of having to click add an item, go back and search and add that item, we'll kind of bring it all together in one place. So to do that, we're going to need a lot of different components. We're going to just need to add some basic aesthetics, a text box, a little bit of a label, and maybe a button. But then we're going to have to build some additional components over the rest of this module to be able to do that autocomplete. So we'll need a web API component, and then we'll also need to utilize JQuery, or I'm going to utilize JQuery's autocomplete library to be able to actually put it all together. So let's go ahead and jump back to Visual Studio to start with. And we are currently inside of the index for manage users. So what we need to open is the ordered items.cshtml. And this table is this table right here for order items. So I'm going to add a text box right here underneath the H tag that says add product. So I'm just going to put a little div here, and then we'll do a label and say add products to order. And then here we're going to do HTML text box. And since this text box isn't connected to our model, I'm not using text box 4, I'm just simply using text box. And we'll call this text box, we'll give it a name of product search. And I'm going to add some HTML attributes to it. Now these attributes are going to be things like placeholder. I'm going to put something in here like type product name to search. And what that'll do is it'll actually put inside of the text box kind of a grayed out text that says type product name to search. So I'm just going to save those changes, and then we'll flip back here and refresh this view. Alright, here we go. And this box needs a little bit more aesthetics to it, so we can jump back into our code, and let's also add a class. And we will say that this is a form control. Let's refresh that again. There we go, much better. So now we have this space here where we can go ahead, and the idea here now is that you would come in and you would type something like orange, and orange would appear, and then we click on it and then be able to actually add that item to the order. So what we'll need in order to do this is we're going to need to bring in the JQuery library. So if we jump out to jQuery.com, actually I think it's jQuery UI, so let's jump into jQuery UI. And I'm looking for a widget that does autocomplete. So this is the autocomplete widget that we're going to incorporate into the page. So if you look here, we can just start typing things like a B, and it comes up with this autocomplete which lists some text for us. What I'm looking to do, let's look at some different modes here. We have category based. So we can type an A, see how it breaks things out. So there's just a lot of different options here. This is a combo box version of it. It's still using the same functionality. Custom data and display, so we can type a J. So we can want to do something kind of similar to that, but I'd like to see where they just have multi-lines. I want to actually have maybe an image here and some text. So we're probably going to go with something like this. So there's an example of that source code right here. So what they've got here is they've got a lot of different style sheets, and then here's the actual script component. It looks like they actually created an array inside of JavaScript of the different projects they're listing. So here's the actual piece that does the autocomplete. So the # or # project is the ID of their text box. So if we scroll down here to their HTML, we can see there's an input element with an ID of project. So that's what this jQuery call is referencing. Then they call .autocomplete, so that's actually initiating the autocomplete functionality on the text box. They're saying the minimum length is 0. The source is from projects, the focus. So on focus, they're running this function. And then on select, they're running a different function. So we'll have to kind of look at this example as we build our own. We'll also have to kind of work to look at the other documentation as we're building out our own. So we'll need to incorporate all of this in here. And really these examples are here for that purpose, to help us understand how do they implement the work, what's the best practice, and then how can we go about doing the same thing. So let's start off by flipping back to Visual Studio, and let's just bring in that jQuery UI into our project. So I'm going to right click on References, go to Manage NuGet Packages, and I'm just going to do Browse, and I'm going to search for jQuery. Let's do an install here and say OK. So now we can jump into scripts, and we'll see here that we have jQuery references, Bootstrap references, and then here's jQuery UI -111.4. So in order to get this working and usable within our project, there's a lot of different ways we can include the JavaScript. There's the traditional way that you would include JavaScript into your project, which is simply to go up into your header, add that reference, and make that work. Another way that's more designed for the ASP.NET MVC is that you have this section under app start called bundle config, and we create things that are called bundles. And these bundles are basically one-liners that does a minification to our JavaScript and our CSS. It makes it so that it's easier for us to include, and it's a little more dynamic, so as we update libraries, we don't have to go through and replace these references in all of our code. So right now you'll see here under the register bundles, we have a bundle for jQuery itself. We have a bundle for jQuery validation. So what I'm going to do is I just want to copy this first jQuery bundle, and I'm just going to copy and paste it down here to duplicate it. And I'm going to create another one here called jQuery UI. So I'm just changing this bundle name to say jQuery UI, so it's tilde/bundles/jQuery UI. And then the script that it's going to reference, I need to actually go back and look at my scripts, and I need to try to match it up. So you'll see here with the jQuery-version.js, it's looking at this name of this jQuery library, and it's jQuery-2.2.1.js. So the version acts as kind of a token to say there's a version number in this file name. So I'm going to follow that similar syntax with jQuery UI. So it's simply jQuery-UI-version. So I'll modify it here and say jQuery-UI-version.js. And that will take care of that aspect of getting this in place. Now, there's also an additional library that comes with jQuery UI, and it's located under Content, Themes, Base. So you have all of this, all the CSS that's in here, and these CSS files are for implementing the UI elements. So if we look at all.css, we'll see that it imports base and it imports theme. If we look at base, you'll see that all or most of the other CSS libraries are all referenced inside of there, and under theme is supplementals. So what we just need to include is, we don't have to include every CSS library, we just have to include the all.css. So to do that, I'm going to come down here where it says content-css as one of the bundles, and I'm going to just add to this, and I'm going to do it in the middle because these load in order. So our site.css is our personal style sheet file for our site, so we can customize it. So we want to apply our Bootstrap themes, and then we want to apply the content/themes/base/all.css. And then finally, we want to apply our own site.css style sheet. So if you ever want to make modifications or changes to your scripts or to your style sheets and how they're being included or loaded, the bundle config.cs is the place to go for that. So I'll save the changes there. And then I'm going to actually copy this little line here of the jQuery UI. And the reason for that is that we want to include that inside of our order items.cshtml. I want to include that jQuery UI script. Now to do that, we actually have this thing called sections that are located at the bottom. But just so you understand how those work, we're going to say at section scripts, curly brackets, and then we're going to put our markup in here. But this is actually referencing something that's under underscore layout.cshtml. If we scroll down here, you'll see there's this render section area called scripts. So this section, or this line here rather, of render section maps to this section that we're defining inside of our order items.cshtml. So what happens is that when we run order items.cshtml gets processed, it picks up this section and then basically does like a copy and pastes it here inside of the page. And that copy and paste puts our script, our JavaScript, right here inside the page. You'll notice above it we have the jQuery render for scripts. We have Bootstrap being loaded for scripts. So all of those libraries are being rendered or loaded right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a scripts.render inside of this section right here. So we're going to say at scripts.render, and then we'll paste in that bundle. So that'll bring in the jQuery UI components. Now below this, we can actually put a set of script tags, and inside of these script tags, we can put our own JavaScript. So this is where that we'll actually do that wire up that we saw earlier from the jQuery example. So we'll probably copy and then manipulate some of the scripting to get things set up for the autocomplete, and we'll put all of that code right here inside of this script section. And we'll do that in the next video.